I'm José García Oliva. I'm a Venezuelan artist based in London. My whole practice and research is about how work shapes our life and how it also changes the way we are perceived by society, especially looking at migrant labor and outsourcing systems, both on national and international scale. My initial thoughts about the residency was to talk about workers' rights with migrant groups in the UK, but also how your working conditions can affect your mental health and well-being. I started looking at archive and I started being quite interested in Mayday's rooms that has these amazing collections of left-wing artifacts that has been collected through time internationally. And they have a really small box that kind of have collected different varieties of flyers, reports, small banners. And since then, I started to be interested in how we can actually expand this collection. And through that, the kind of proposal started changing, and we thought about how the residency can be shaped in a way that the archive become the core of the research. The first group that I started working with was with LIFE, Latin American Youth Forum. And with this group, so we started an activity that was a series of talks run by Ana Aguirre, and she was talking about your workers' rights, especially your workers' rights at that age when you're under 18. And then we brought the archive out in the space, and we started to think about how can we observe the archive, reorganize the archive, and also use the archive as a still life, that thing that is almost like you can draw from it. I think what was amazing in the conversations with young people with life in general, it was that some of them are already working. They have already faced these kind of poor working conditions, especially in low wage. And I think also what it was interesting is that you can see that there's a gap in the curriculum, of educational curriculum here in the UK, where they don't really talk so much about your rights, your own rights in the working environment. And then since then, I started working with TAP. And we started looking at different formats to protest. And we thought about the kite. How can we use the kite as the symbol of play and playfulness that is almost the opposite of work? And through flying a kite, you can also raise your words and your way of speaking and flying those words. And there was this whole movement in Venezuela where Rafael Araujo was this kind of kite maker in Venezuela that used to protest by writing sentences on the kites. And it was this beautiful way of putting your words outside your body, but it's still protecting your own self. So if anything happened, you can just cut the thread, and then there's that distance. We start talking about the idea of failure, and it's okay to fail. And even if you're trying to fly, you might fail, but that kind of idea of flying the kites again and again and again, and also trying to find different formats of flying. And then we look into paper planes, and how we can actually create these paper planes made out of the archive. So we thought about the idea of flying the archive. After I finished working with Triangle Adventure Playground, I started working with OPAL, which is Out and Proud African SDVI. OPAL is a charity. It's a queer and refugee asylum seekers based in London. And they are all about celebrating who they are. And it was all about, it was about how to be out and proud and be loud and kind of occupying a space. So we kind of completely changed the workshop into making something that is much more celebratory, but at the same time talking about workers' rights and how it applies to their own position. So we looked at the archive and we found this beautiful banner made by Latin American women for the Women's Day March in the UK. And it was all about painting with hands. And we applied the same technique or style of making with their group, using the grids, which is this timetable of the hours to understand your working hours. And after that, they have to write what they love about OPAL. Once we finished this exercise, we went to the opposite exercise, which was about writing your complaints. Like, what do you hate to live in London? What are things that you would like that changes in your life or in the particular condition that you are in? And then once we gather all of these complaints, we turn them into a song and a complaint choir. And then we recorded, and that was in collaboration with Javier and Lexi. And in this recording, it becomes this song that they're using as a song of resistance for their organization.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
The public event, I think it was very important to make it happen in a public space, in a park, especially Burgess Park, which is a very, 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 very relevant park for Latin American communities in London. It's in the middle, Elephant and Castle, which is this place where there has been a decade of gentrification. The whole place, the whole community of Latin America has been moving, but there's that kind of resistance staying in the park that you can feel it. And then I started thinking of hammocks and these objects that contain bodies, and it allows us to almost levitate in a space. But at the same time, I think what's something interesting about hammocks is that it's all about resting your body, and it's a moment of pause, of the opposite of working. But every time you lie down in a hammock, you have this fear of breaking. So I think in that duality of fear and rest is where many people live. A fundamental part of the event was Kaibu there, which is the union that supports workers. So they were there to answer any questions that the people have about their contract, their workers' conditions, and that was together with Venezuelan food, which was the most important part, to share and to eat empanadas and pequeños. So yeah, I think the idea it was to have something that's almost opposite of the whole idea of fighting for your rights, and instead of resting with the materials of decades and decades of Latin American fighting for their own rights to have better working conditions. So it became like that container that allowed you to rest and look back and feel that you're not alone. You're part of a whole community that is supporting your own rights.